Hello, my name is Madeline, and welcome to this full body Yin Yoga practice. So, this is really going to be a full body practice today. We'll be getting into the upper body, the legs, the hips, really everything, since it's going to be a longer one. So, let's get right into it with some breath. We'll take 3 deep breaths to ground into the space. So exhale all the air out now. Take an inhale through the nose and sigh out the mouth. Inhaling through the nose. Exhale out the mouth. One more inhale through the nose. And really long sigh out the mouth. Now we'll just get into a little bit of movement before we get into the yin poses. So we'll come to a seated cat-cow. Place the hands on those knees. And as you inhale, begin to arch the spine up towards the sky. And then round the back as you exhale. And you can continue with those cat-cows or take any kind of fluid movement that feels good. And if you have props like blocks or bolsters that you like to use, you can grab them. If not, that's totally okay. You don't need them for practice. So just continue in this movement, waking up the body a little bit. And then return back to center. And we'll get into our first yin pose, which will be a seated diamond pose. So you can come to bring the soles of your feet together in front of you and really try to create a diamond-like shape with those legs. So try not to be too close into the chest. And from here, if you want to stay up like this, that's great. If you want to go a little further, you can begin to fold forward, grabbing hold of those ankles, and let the back round and soften. And just notice how your body is feeling right now at the start of this practice, how you're feeling emotionally, how you're feeling mentally, and just take note of it. Really try to let that head drop down. let's take a few more breaths here. Take one last breath in the seated diamond. And if you're folded forward, start to slowly crawl back up, taking hold of the outside of those thighs and just gently drawing those knees back together. And once you're there, come down to lie on your back on the mat, stretching those legs out long, maybe rocking the hips a couple times side to side, and then returning back to stillness. And we're going to make our way into a Bananasana. So stretch the arms up above you and then shift the hips a little over to the left. So you want to try to keep both hip points on the ground. Then slowly start to walk those feet over to the lower right corner of the mat, and then those hands over to the upper right corner of the mat. So you're in this banana-like shape. If you want to go a little deeper, you can cross that left ankle over the right and maybe grab hold of the left wrist with the right hand. If this arm positioning doesn't feel good to you, you can always clasp opposite elbows or just find a position that works best for your body. And breathe deeply into that whole left side body here. Remembering to take those deep breaths. And we'll take a few more breaths here. If you had those ankles crossed, begin to slowly uncross them. Let go of the wrist if you are holding on. Then really gently making your way back to center, pausing in the center for a moment. And then we'll make our way into Bananasana on the other side. So shift those hips a little over to the right, and this time draw the feet over to that lower left corner and the upper body to that upper left corner of the mat. Option to cross the right ankle over the left and maybe grab hold of that right wrist with the left hand. You can always take hold of opposite elbows as well, or find an arm position that works best for you. And take a deep breath into that whole right side body. And let's take a few more breaths here. Take one last deep breath. And then slowly start to make your way back into center, uncrossing those ankles, letting go of the wrist. And then pause for a moment here on your back. Noticing the effects of those poses. And whenever you're ready, begin to hug the knees into the chest. Maybe you want to rock a couple times side to side. And then we'll make our way up into a seat. So you can rock back and forth on your mat or just get there however works best for you. So coming into a seated position with the legs out long. And we're going to make our way into a caterpillar pose. So if you have a blanket, you can always sit up on top of that to create some more space in the hips. And whenever you're ready, also option to bend the knees as much as you like here. Reach those arms up to the sky and start to fold forward over those legs. Option, if you have a block, to place a block in between the legs to rest the forehead on. Your legs definitely don't need to be straight here. Just find a place that feels good, where you can remain still for a couple minutes. This one is really opening up the whole back body. So try to imagine the breath flowing through the entire back body as you breathe deeply. And let's take a few more breaths here. Take one last deep breath and slowly start to lift your head up, crawling back with those hands back up into that seated position. And from here, you can place both hands behind you and take a couple of windshield wipers, rocking those knees from side to side. Then return back to center whenever you're ready. We'll come to make our way into a tabletop position. So in tabletop, option to take a couple of cat-cows or take any kind of movement that feels good to you. And once you're finished with your movement, return back to that neutral tabletop and we'll make our way into a thread the needle pose. So in thread the needle, try to keep those knees and hips in one line and reach that right arm up to the sky and then thread the right arm underneath the left. So that right shoulder is pressing on the mat. Option to walk the left fingertips forward if that feels good. Really great shoulder opener here. Really breathe deeply here. And let's take one last breath and thread the needle. And slowly start to slide that right arm back, reaching the right arm up to the sky. And then returning to neutral tabletop. So maybe you want to rock the hips a couple times side to side before we move into that pose on the other side. Whenever you're ready, return back to neutral tabletop, and then we'll reach the left arm up to the sky this time. Again, try to keep those knees and hips in line And then thread that left arm under the right. So that left shoulder should be pressing down on the mat. An option to crawl those right fingertips out in front of you for a deeper stretch, but listening to what feels good in your body. So trying to breathe deeply into this twist. And let's take one more deep breath here. If you had that right arm outstretched, bringing it back closer to your body, then slowly unthreading that needle, reaching the left arm up to the sky, and returning back to that tabletop position. Again, option to take a little bit of movement here. Maybe a couple of cat-cows. Then return to neutral tabletop whenever you're ready. So from here, we'll make our way into a melting heart pose. Again, you want to try to keep those knees and hips stacked on top of each other. And we'll walk our hands towards the top of the mat. And slowly start to draw your chest down to the mat. Maybe the forehead touches the mat. So you should really feel this in your upper body. If you feel any pain or tingling in the arms, you can spread the arms wider across the mat. Again, option if you have a blanket, you can always place that underneath the knees if your knees are a bit sensitive. Really breathe deeply into the pose. This is definitely one of my favorites for some shoulder opening. Let's take a few more breaths. Take one more breath and then stay low to the ground. Slide that body back into a closed leg child's pose. So the knees are together and the arms are reaching back behind you. Option 2, take a wide leg child's pose if that feels better. And once you're here, maybe rocking the forehead side to side just a couple times. And then returning back to stillness. And letting the effects of that melting heart pose sink in. Take one last breath in child's pose. And again, try to stay low to the ground. Come forward onto your belly, preparing for a Sphinx pose. So in Sphinx pose, both forearms will be on the mat, parallel with each other, and your gaze will be out slightly in front of you. If you have a block, option to grab that block and place it underneath your forehead, but totally not necessary. So trying to focus on your breath here in Sphinx. This one can definitely feel a bit challenging to hold sometimes. Breathing deeply. Let's take a few more breaths in Sphinx. Take one last breath here, and then start to slowly lower down to the ground. Taking both your hands, stacking them on top of each other, and then resting the forehead on those hands for a resting belly pose. This can feel really nice after the intense Sphinx. Option here to slide that right knee up in line with the hip to help release that lower back, or option to just stay in the resting belly pose. And if you had that right knee in line with the right hip, begin to slide that right leg back to meet the left. Come up onto the hands and then press back up and make your way into a seated position with the legs stretched out in front of you. So really taking your time here, no rush. And we'll start to get into those hamstrings a little bit more as well as the hips. So we'll get into a half butterfly pose now. Take the sole of that right foot and place it alongside that left thigh. Again, if you have a blanket, you can always sit on top of that. And if you have blocks, option to prepare before we fold, option to take a couple blocks to rest your forehead on. Again, totally not necessary. And whenever you're ready, start to fold forward over that left leg. So really great opening for the hamstrings. An option to bend that left knee slightly if that feels better in your body. And really try to round that back, let the spine soften, let the head drop. Let's take a few more breaths in half butterfly. Take one last deep breath. Whenever you're ready, start to slowly crawl back up that left leg. So really take your time, there's no rush. And then stretch that right leg out long to meet the left leg. And here, option to take a couple of windshield wipers, rocking those knees side to side. And then returning back to center whenever you're ready with the legs out long. And we'll come into that half butterfly on the other side. So this time, taking the sole of the left foot to the right thigh. Option to take a couple blocks for your forehead to rest on. And then whenever you're ready, begin to fold forward over that right leg, knowing that each side can feel really different. So you can always bend that right knee if you need to. Taking deep breaths. Let's take a few more breaths here. Take one more deep breath. And then start to slowly crawl those hands back up over the right leg, removing any props if you're using them. And then letting that left leg stretch out to meet the right. So maybe you want to shake those legs out a little bit, or do a couple of windshield wipers side to side. Whenever you're ready, return back to center, and we'll come back into tabletop to prepare for a deer pose. So in this deer pose, we'll draw the left shin parallel with the top of the mat. And then that right shin is going to come parallel with the long ways of the mat. So you kind of have these two triangle-like shapes here, two right angles. And you want to look straight forward, option to grab a block again for the forehead, if that feels nice. And from here, start to fold forward over that left shin. So a gentle opening for the hip. You should be feeling this in that left hip. This one is also really relaxing. Great to do before sleep. We'll take a few more breaths. Whenever you're ready, no rush at all, begin to press back up onto those hands. You can bring the hands behind you. Again, maybe you want to shake out those legs a little bit. before we move into the other side. Just pausing for a second with those straight legs. And then we'll get into a deer pose with the right shin facing forward this time. So that right shin is going to be parallel with the top of the mat. And then that left shin will be parallel with the side of the mat. So again, you have those two triangle-like shapes and two right angles in the legs. Option to place a block in front of you for the forehead to rest on. You definitely don't need it. And then whenever you're ready, start to fold forward over that right shin. Maybe the forehead touches the block. And feeling that opening in the right hip. Let's take a few more breaths. And then slowly, whenever you're ready, start to press back up onto those hands, removing any props, and stretching those legs out in front of you. Again, maybe you want to shake those legs or do a couple of windshield wipers, rocking from side to side. So we have one last forward folding posture before we come down onto our backs for a few more poses. And that's going to be a straddle pose. So come back to center, and then you can face the long ways on your mat. If you have a blanket or a bolster, this would be a great place to place it underneath your seat. If not, totally okay. And then a couple blocks can be handy as well if you like using them. So whenever you're ready, let's stretch both legs out to the corners of the mat. So you're in this wide-legged position. Option to bend the knees as much as you like. You can always place blocks underneath the knees as well. And if this is enough, that's great. You can stay here. If you want to go a little deeper, you can begin to fold forward in between those legs. So option, if you have blocks, you can place a couple underneath you for your forehead to rest on. So really great hip opener here. Just listening to what feels best in your body, knowing that if you ever feel any pain, you can always back out of it. Or if you just don't feel like doing it, you don't have to do it either. Remember your deep breathing in this pose. Try to let that back round and soften, dropping the head down. And we'll take a few more breaths in this straddle pose. Take one last deep breath here, maybe folding a little deeper. And then slowly, really gently here, start to crawl those fingertips back up if you were folding forward. And really gently grab hold of the outside of those legs, drawing them back together into center. And you can just fold over those legs, or you can take those windshield wipers if that feels good. So just being really gentle. That was a really intense pose for the hips. So just listen to what your body is craving. And whenever you're ready, no rush at all, we'll come down onto our backs. So we're not getting into Shavasana just yet, but just rest here on your back, feeling the effects of all the poses we've done so far. And whenever you're ready, draw those knees into the chest, maybe rocking a couple times side to side. And then we'll come into a reclined twist. So shift the hips a little over to the left, and then let those knees drop over to the right, reaching that left arm into a T shape or a cactus shape. And try to get that left shoulder to stay pressing down on the mat. It should feel really nice after all that forward folding. Really breathe deeply into the twist with each breath. Maybe you're able to twist a little deeper. Let's take one more deep breath into the twist. And slowly draw those knees back to center. We'll get right into that other side. Shifting the hips a little over to the right and letting the knees drop over to the left. This time reaching that right arm out into a T shape or a cactus shape. Trying to press that right shoulder down on the mat. And take one last deep breath into the twist. And then draw those knees back to center. Maybe making some circles with the knees or rocking a couple times side to side, releasing that lower back. And then pausing back at center. Just have a couple more poses left. We'll make our way into a reclining pigeon. So you can place that left ankle on top of the right thigh. Then draw that left shin closer to the face. Maybe you grab the shin outside the shin with both of those hands or the hamstring, whatever works for you. So really getting that opening in the left hip. You can let this be relaxed and gentle. You don't have to press too hard. Let's take a few more breaths here. Taking one last deep breath. And then slowly releasing that right foot down to the ground. Maybe rocking those hips a little bit. And pausing back at center for a moment. And then we'll make our way into that reclined pigeon on the other side. So this time the right ankle will come on top of the left thigh. Option to wrap those hands around the left shin or behind that left hamstring. And each side, again, can feel really different. So you can always do a different variation on this side. Getting a nice hip opening for that right hip. And try to draw that left knee towards the face. And let's take a few more breaths here. Take one last deep breath. And slowly let it go, releasing those hands, releasing the legs, and then shaking those legs out a little bit from side to side. And if you're ready to go into Shavasana from here, you can totally go for it. If you want to join me for one more pose, we'll make our way into a brief happy baby. So bringing the soles of the feet up to the sky, grab hold of the outside of those feet, and just let the knees drop down to the earth. Maybe you want to rock a couple times side to side. Then come to stillness whenever you're ready. Breathing deeply. And you can stay in this happy baby pose or option to take any final poses or movement your body is needing before we all make our way into Shavasana, final resting pose. So really taking your time here, listen to whatever your body is needing, and no rush at all. Whenever you're ready, we'll come to lie flat on our mats and make our way into Shavasana. So really let that body soften and relax, surrender and melt into the earth. And notice how your body feels different, or maybe it doesn't, from when we started class. Close your eyes if you can, and just rest. And I encourage you to stay in Shavasana as long as you like, if you have the time. But this is where we'll close class. We'll close with one final breath. So exhale all the air out now. Take an inhale through the nose and a long sigh out the mouth. Again, feel free to stay lingering here. We really got into the whole body, so I hope you're feeling a bit lighter, a bit more open. And thank you so much for practicing with me. If you want to see more Yin Yoga videos like this, please subscribe to my channel and let me know how this went in the comments. And I'll see you again next time.